So let's talk about how I met my guides, shall we? I cannot bear to record this without my window open because it is so hot and I'm in a place where air conditioning just isn't even a thing, except for this. Hold on. Look at it, it's gone. Anyway, if you hear a dog barking or my kids screaming or something like that outside, no, you didn't. I'm Emily. Welcome to my channel. I am so excited to share this particular video with you all today. One of the main reasons I'm excited to share this video is a lot of these stories I've told, but kind of in bits and pieces and in different kind of capacities and not so much in a one fluid sort of stream. But also these are really wonderful stories in the way of if you need examples of how a journey in psychic abilities work, this video is a great one to watch because hopefully my stories of how I got to know my guides will inspire you on how this is a process. This is not a quick overnight thing. I know with social media, it can start to feel like a quick overnight thing to connect with your spirit guides, like super easy peasy, super fast. It's not. That's just not how it works. This video, I hope it will serve as a little bit of a reminder that no one's process looks the same. Also, this can be a gradual thing. No matter how connected you are, new things can come up. You can learn more, you can grow more, and you can reassess your version of the truth. You can also connect with different beings throughout different parts of your journey, which is what I have done. So let me tell you, it's going to be a fun one. I didn't really even script this. We're just going to go through some of my main guides, or the ones that really want to share their story, I guess, and go from there. First and foremost, I do just want to say thank you to my lovely patrons. They voted for this video. If you want to be a part of my Patreon, you get to vote on my video topics. This was one. I got a couple other really cool options coming up, both on the psychic side and in the channeled history sort of side. On the channeled history note, I do have another retreat coming up in a different international location. I would love for you to attend. I will probably tell you more on the next video that comes out, but if you want the information quicker, go ahead and head to my TikTok or sign up for my email list, and that will give you announcement on location, which I'm so excited about, you guys. So excited about. As well as pricing and payment plans and timeline and all of that sort of stuff. But we do have a new trip coming up. If you've seen my recap from the Greece trip or when I found the magic door, anything like that, we're doing that together in a different place. So I would love for you to come and attend. The reason I'm not announcing all the information on here right now is honestly, I'm not sure when I'm going to post this video. And so I don't want it to be too in advance of my psychic guessing game that I do play on my other platforms and to spoil that game. So go check it out there. Chances are good it's probably already live on my link trees on my stuff. So you can probably already find the information when this comes out. Yeah, so those are my housekeeping things before we dive in. I do also want to say thank you to my lovely Intuitive Initiate patrons, and they are Alexandria, Angela, Arson, Carrie, Cheryl, Danny, Danielle, Katie, who has traveled with me before, very fun, Meg, Melody, Raquel, Rebecca, Sarah C, Sarah S, and Amber. Thank you all so much for being a part of my Patreon. Thank you so much for showing up there for each other, for helping each other grow, and for being here for me as well. I'm so lucky to know you all. So let's talk about how I met my guides, shall we? So here's the rundown just very briefly before I dive into some story times about how I met my spirit guides, all the different ones that I met and all the different stories that I've met with them, which I'm not going to cover all of my guides in this video, but I am going to cover some of my main ones and give you kind of a diversity in story there. Before I tell you about that, I do just want to talk very briefly on spirit guides as well. I have done other videos on this. Go check them out. There's like 3, but I'm sure I will do more on here as well. I would just want to give you a rundown. First of all, everyone has spirit guides. Yes, you have spirit guides. No, they are not the same beings for everyone. You may have 1, you may have 7. Usually people have 2 to 3 kind of core team guides, and then a whole bunch more than that come in and out throughout their lives. That is kind of a rule of thumb. That is not a guarantee, but that is a rule of thumb of how guides sort of work, which means that as you go along, even if a guide has been there, you might not have known they were there, and they might come and introduce themselves to you a little bit later in life. So you don't have to know your guides are there to know that they are there helping you. And however you reach out to your guides, whatever your process is for connecting with your guides is the right process for you. That's just the root of it. That's just how it works. So don't think that, wow, I wish these things would happen to me exactly this way. They're not going to. However, if you want your guides to come forward, be like, hey, I'm ready, I'm open, I would like you to come forward and connect with me. Keep in mind, if you're not ready and not open, that is kind of giving them the green light to help make you ready and open so they can connect with you, which usually means activations or understanding of what you need to shed. There's a million different things. So it's kind of a similar principle to manifestation, to be totally honest, which I'm happy to do a video on manifestation if you guys want that as well, of some of my like favorite manifestation techniques and stuff, and things that might be blocking you from manifesting and how to overcome those, that sort of deal. So let me know in the comments if you want that video. Oh, also please like, subscribe, hit the bell thingy. I'm really doing good at this today, aren't I? I have had 2 cups of coffee in the last couple hours because I have been so busy that it's been ridiculous. So it's a little bit of overcaffeinated me today. Also, I am eating fruit. So if you see me like pause for a second to have some banana snacks, let's talk guides. So I have a very close relationship with my spirit guides. And when I say I have a very close relationship with them, I truly mean it, to the point where I will talk to my guides pretty much all day long, every day. And that is not how I've always been. That is how I am at present, partly because I love them. And they're my best friends, and they are constantly around, and I can talk to them and chat with them. They give really solid advice, and I just really enjoy them as beings, and beings that I get to connect with. That is a huge part of the reason. I will also say, though, part of the reason is because of my line of work as well, where I'm already tuning into guides all day. I'm pretty much tuning into them often because it's natural for me. That does not mean it needs to be natural for you by any means. If anything, if you're like, maybe talk to them once in a while, that is totally fine. So I have grown over the course of meeting all these different guides into being incredibly comfortable with them. So basically what I did is I asked which guides would like me to tell their story. So that is what you're getting. And we are going to start with Hope. That is not her real name. I'm just going to start there. Hope's name is not that name. But that is the name that I gave her before I could really understand what it was that she was, who she was, because I named her Hope because she is always there. And that made me feel connected and loved. So a little bit of background on Hope. Hope is my protector, or one of my protectors. She is always around, and she's always around in a very corporeal sort of way, meaning she interacts a lot with my physical reality. She's almost like a ghost, but a ghost with more oomph and consciousness. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, she's always around. She has been around since I was a very, very little kid, and she is one of my best friends. And I love her to death. The way I met Hope is kind of a little bit of a long story, so I'll try to keep it rather abbreviated for this video. But first off, she started really being very physically interactive with me. Basically in high school, I had been putting off my psychic abilities and avoiding them forever. And she came in and was like, hey, no more. We're going to try to work on this. What she was really trying to do was prevent me from making a lovely decision to get with my ex-husband, which of course I didn't understand and totally just dove headfirst into, which is a whole other story. But at the time, she would wake me up from bad dreams, and she would do that by like physically shaking me. So I would wake up from a bad dream with like a hand disappearing under the blanket is how it would look. Like the blanket would be like outdented. Okay, you get it. That's what it would look like. That's what it would look like. And I would wake up and I'd see that and I'd freak out. So to the point where like my mom would sleep in bed with me when I was in high school because I was so scared of the ghost in my room, is who I thought it was. Turns out it was just Hope trying to wake me up from bad dreams whenever I would have them, because I'd be freaking out and trying to help connect me with my intuition, which I was actively avoiding with my whole body. My relationship with her kind of progressed when I was in the relationship with a horrible, horrible person. One time she threw a bunch of plates at him. Again, I thought our house was just haunted, but I watched him approach the cabinet. I watched him open the cabinet. He turned around and said something horrifically awful to me, which I will not be repeating. And then the plates just launched at him off of the front of the cabinet, like just boom, out of the cabinet right at his face. And he freaked out because he's like, oh my God, the house is haunted. I freaked out because I was like, oh my God, the house is haunted. But secretly I was also like, but it doesn't like you, so it's haunted in my favor. Turns out that was in fact Hope. So these are just a couple of the little things that I had like picked up on about her before I started kind of meeting her and interacting with her. So anyway, left super douche cookie behind, moved into my own place with just my kids, and I had a touch lamp. I still have it. It's still on my nightside table, but it was on my nightside table at the time. Now a touch lamp is literally a lamp where you like, when you touch it, it turns on. It was my grandmother's touch lamp, so it already has a lot of spiritual energy there. And growing up, it would turn on very randomly, and my mom would always be like, oh, it's your grandma, like saying hi. I never felt it was my grandma saying hi. I always got freaked out by it, again, because obviously it was Hope, but beside the point. So I had a touch lamp on my nightside table, and I was noticing is I kept feeling like every time I moved into a new house, things would be totally fine. I wouldn't be scared. I wouldn't sense any energies or entities and whatever until like 2 or 3 months in. And then I would start getting freaked out. And I started thinking, what if it's me that's haunted? What if it's not the houses that are haunted? What if it's me that's haunted? What if I'm the one that's, the thing is attached to me and is causing the plates to fall off the ceiling, whatever. So like whenever I'd go up to my third floor in my new house, I'd be freaked out. Like there was something up there. And eventually I was like, screw this. I'm not doing this, not like this. So I went to my bedroom, which like my bedroom was, it's really hard to explain, but my bedroom was here. And then like the third floor was like a loft above my bedroom. It was like a random add-on. So I stood in my bedroom because I was too scared to go all the way up to the third floor and say this, but I stood in my bedroom and I was like, hey, I feel you here. I know you're here. If you're here, please just come down and interact with us and be part of the family. I don't want you to think that you're not welcome. I know you've done things in my favor. I appreciate you, and I'd really appreciate you getting to interact with the family. Like, hang out. And I just kind of stood there for a second, and I was like, okay, bye.
Take care now. Bye-bye then.
I went down, and I think I left to go pick my kids up from school. Whatever. And I just kind of forgot about the conversation because I was like, whatever, I spoke my piece. If the ghost wants to come hang out with me, the ghost can come hang out with me. And I went and picked up my kids from school, did dinner time. They were itty bitties. They were toddlers at the time. Put them to bed, whatever. And then I walked back into my room and my touch lamp was on. Yeah. So I was like, oh, it worked. Keep in mind, there's no possible way I could have bumped the touch lamp. It was totally on the other side of the room. I don't need to justify it, you all. You know what it was. I know what it was. But just to let you know, that's how it worked. So I was like, okay, cool. So there's a ghost that wants to talk to me. That was my initial ping. But then diving in and channeling more and talking to Hope more, I started figuring out, wait a second, this is a spirit guide. Wait a second, something else is different here. And she started being really communicative using the physical objects around. For example, and this is going a little outside of the parameter of just how I met my guide here, but I just want to give you another example of how Hope kind of interacted with me. And this is not a rule, like this is not how all guides interact. This is not saying that if you've had an interaction like this, it's not a ghost, because sometimes it is, but in this case, it was Hope. I was sitting there watching a movie and just relaxing in my bed at the end of the day. The kids were asleep, and all of a sudden she started like the DVD player, because it was at that point in time, the DVD player kind of started blanking out and like not working. And I was trying to mess with it, and I was like, oh, okay, I wonder if it's Hope. Like, I wonder if it's my, guide ghost friend trying to interact with me. And I was like, hey, are you trying to get a hold of me? And the DVD player completely shut off. And I was like, oh, okay, let's talk. And so I tried talking out loud and going by my feelings. This is right when I was really just, figuring out how my psychic abilities worked. So I was trying to tune in that way. And then I pulled out my cards and started kind of having a card conversation with her. Basically, I ended up figuring out her message. She just wanted to tell me about herself. This is kind of the time when I realized she was a guide and not a ghost, was during that conversation for the most part. And then when that conversation was done, I was like, listen, that was awesome. Thank you. Also, though, could you please let me watch my movie again? Because I'd like to really finish that. And she turned it back on. Just like that. So that's Hope. She's around. If you've ever seen anything behind me or orbs floating around me, it's either the fairies that live up here in my office or it's her. For the most part. That's Hope. My protector guide. Around that same time, I also met Apollo. And when I say I met Apollo, I was already doing deity work at the time that I realized that he was more than just a deity connection. Now, I will say, this story really floats his boat. He loves this story. He thinks it is so cute. He is so proud of himself about it. And I'm going to call him out on that right now because he should be proud of himself about it. It was really cute. But also, he is real stoked that I'm about to tell you this story because it fluffs his feathers. And he should know that I know it fluffs his feathers. Anyway, every time I've ever told this story, he talks about how proud of himself that he is. So as I was doing the deity work that I was doing, I was a Hellenic polytheist at the time. If you want to know more about deity work, I just did a video on that. So check that out and you can hear more about my relationship with Apollo there as well. But I was doing deity work and I was kind of thinking along the terms of like a patron deity. Super sorry I had to pause because my child was locked out of the house. Don't worry, they're teenagers. She just wanted to get her helmet to go ride a bike with her friends. Beside the point. Anyway, at the time I was thinking about relationships with deities very much in a like, I need to find my patron deity, which deity is going to claim me sort of manner, which is a totally fine way of thinking about it. But I didn't realize the extent of my relationship with Apollo at the time. I was just kind of like, hey, what deity is going to claim me? And kind of putting that energy out into the universe. So one day I was cleaning my house. My kids were away at school. I was off that day and I'm cleaning my house. I'm listening to music and I was getting more and more frustrated throughout this entire day. Mostly by the fact of the why the fuck am I here question that just kept coming up again and again and again. And every thought process I had, every time that question came up and I didn't know what to do with it, I just kind of switched thought processes and it just kept circling back around to that. And I was getting pissed because I don't have the answer to that question. I didn't want to ruminate on it. And so finally I was like, why and what is the reason? Like, why am I here on this planet? Why am I going through all these hard things? I was really in the heart of my like recovery from my abusive relationship at the time. It wasn't going great and I was annoyed. And so I was like, why? Someone answer me. And so right then I felt basically like, I can only describe it as like hands grabbing me and holding me still in this one spot of floor. And right then the song switched in the middle of a different song to Your Song by Elton John. And it was the Ellie Goulding version of it. And basically the main line in that song is, how wonderful life is now that you're in the world. And I was held there and I'm sitting there and I'm sobbing to this song, feeling these hands there. And all of a sudden I look down and I am standing in the only perfect square of sunlight in the entire house. In the entire house, there's a perfect square of sunlight coming in from the window and I am standing in it. And the reason there was no other sunlight is because there's trees all around. It's beside the point, but that is what I'm standing in. And I realized right then, I was like, oh, I'm being claimed by Apollo. Apollo's my patron deity. This is exactly what's going on. To which he laughed. And I felt his laugh. I heard his laugh. And since then, I've worked more and more with him to understand our relationship. Obviously, he is a spirit guide for me, not a patron deity. There's a little bit of differences there. But I've channeled with him a whole bunch to figure that out and understand that connection. And that is kind of the root of it, where it at least started when I was like, hey, can you claim me? Who's there talking to me? And then he did when I really needed him. He deserves the feather fluffing, okay? But also, I want to preface that he is very proud of that story, because I think it's also really funny, indicative of his kind of personality. Also, when I talk about spirit guides that have been there for me, emotionally, I have thrown a lot of emotions at him over the years, and he has helped me through a lot of shit. So I deeply honor and revere him. Look, I have a little one of him. He's right there. It only kind of looks like him, but it was the closest I could find when we were in Greece, and I love it. That's how I met Apollo. All right. Those are two of kind of the more emotional meetings that I had with some spirit guides. So let's talk about two other ones. So the next spirit guide I want to talk about is Boris. Boris is my dragon guide. Not everyone has a dragon guide. Some people do, some people don't. The same way not everyone has a deity as a guide. Some people do, some people don't. There's a whole variety here. However, whenever I usually say I have a dragon guide, people are immediately like, do I have a dragon guide? Does everyone have a dragon guide? That's not how dragons work. I can do a whole video on the explanation of them if you want, because obviously I've channeled on it quite a bit considering I have a dragon guide. But basically dragons kind of exist in a next door realm. Like, think of the way you would think of like the fairy realms. That's the dragon realms too. They're kind of similar. They're like overlappy realms to our realm. One day I was driving and I'm driving home, I think from work. I can't remember where I was driving, to be totally honest, because I got so startled. No, can't remember. I just tried to pull it up and it's not coming up. But I was driving home. I know I was driving home. And all of a sudden I feel something slam into my back, like whoom. And to the point where I went like, whoa, what was that? And I'm driving and I pull over and I feel this little dragon. And when I say I feel it, like I just know it and I can see it and I can physically feel it on my back. This little dragon grabbing on like this. And I was like, hello, what are you doing here? Who are you? And this is a couple years down the line. I think I was maybe like 25, 26 at this time. So a couple years past when I had like the Apollo and Hope connection. So I was already familiar with working with spirit guides. I had another couple spirit guides kind of show up in between that time, one of which I'll tell you about in a second. But when Boris slammed in, I hadn't ever had a guide introduce themselves to me like that. Like I hadn't had a guide just like drop in and physically smack into me and be like, I'm here. And I was like, whoa, what is going on? And so at first I thought he was like a negative energy connection, like a negative entity attached to my energy. And I was like, whoa, what is happening? And like, I was getting ready to like remove the entity from my energy. And immediately he was like, no, like I've been trying to find you. You don't understand. And he like memory shared kind of with me on an energetic sense, which is like the weirdest way to say it ever. And I totally get that. But energetically, I was like, okay, I know you, like you're familiar. Like I feel this familiarity. And so I channeled my other guides and they were all like, yo, it's okay. He is actually a guide of yours, but he kind of came into the corporeal space because that's kind of how dragons do it a lot of the times, I guess. And he came to go find you. He had a really hard time finding you, which is why he's so small. And I was like, that makes no sense. Tell me more. So he was so small because he had spent so much time flying through the corporeal, I guess, and that time shrunk his body because it shrunk his energy to search in this particular realm. So what I did do is I was like, listen, I'm not abandoning you. I am going to separate your connection from my energy just to send you into like creator level energy so you can come back down knowing where I am. And you can be in your full-size form, because I don't want you to be depleted from energy and hanging on me. That's not a mutually beneficial relationship. There's something about that that's dangerous. We need to go ahead and heal this, and then you can come in and be my guide in full form, of which he was totally amenable to. I still have not got the full story of why he was going through physical reality that shrunk him. I still don't fully know. Dragons don't talk a lot, but they're really strong presence. So I'm working on it. I'll keep you updated. Anyway, he's never really shared it with me. I don't know if he just doesn't want to talk about it or like what the deal is, but it's his journey. I respect it. So anyway, I sent him to creator energy, brought him back down, and he was huge. So anytime I talk about Boris, I always need to mention he's very large. He gets very touchy about being called small, because even though he was small, he's not small, and he wants everyone to know that all the time. He is another protector of mine in kind of a different way. He's kind of a grounder and protector. He is pretty much always standing behind me and has his head over here, like on me pretty much all the time, and I feel him all the time. But he has not been there since I entered on planet. He's been there since he found me and slammed into my back while I was driving my car. I have obviously worked with him pretty extensively since. When I first asked him his name, he didn't have one. He said, I don't have a human one. I don't know what to give you. And I said, well, whenever you give me one, I will accept it. And I waited for, I think, years, to be totally honest, for him to pick one out. His words, not mine. And he picked out Boris. It was when Boris Johnson was prime minister. I definitely got a laugh out of that one. I thought it was hilarious. I asked him if that's why he picked it. He said no, whatever. I have no idea, but his name is Boris. He is my dragon, and he is around all the time. I also have never felt so secure as when I feel him like standing over me. It's like a really, really grounding, comforting sort of feeling. And I hope for that for everyone, because it is amazing. I'm going to tell you about 2 more guide stories before we round out this video, because I know this is a lot of information and a lot of kind of like quick little story times, but I hope you're finding it helpful to understand how they kind of come in. Now, those ones have all been very physical, and I do know that. I want to talk about these next 2 that I want to bring up. Neither of them are particularly physical with me. Neither have been very physical with me, and they both have very unique sort of guide origin stories to share with you. So my oracle, that's her name. She is a mentor of mine. That's pretty much all I know about her as a being, to be totally honest. She does not really talk about herself. Came to me in a dream and then reinforced it with another dream. Or kind of with an astral projection. One time I had a dream. It was on the summer solstice. I remember that part of it very vividly. And in this dream, I enter into some castle ruins, and I kind of go downstairs, and there is a woman sitting there, and she's sitting there on a stool. And I lucid dream fairly often. I always have. This was not a lucid dream. I was told very clearly I was not allowed to be in control of this dream. So I sit down on the stool across from her, and I was like, hello. And she was like, I know why you're here. You want to be here about all this. And she like waves her arm, and all of these lines of writing form in the air in front of her in this like gold. And I was like, oh, wow. Because usually in dreams, you can't really read things, or you like know you're reading it, but there's not actually words. It's kind of like if you were to look at a clock, like when you're lucid dreaming, that's one of the things they like have you test to make sure you know you're in a dream. If there's like a clock there, or you try to look at your hands, it's like hard to do when lucid dreaming. And so the fact that she like wrote out all these lines of text and I could read them was the first thing where I was like, this is weird. Okay. Because the lines of text were all about my life. They had my name, they had my kids' names, they had where I lived, like my address, they had my parents. Like it was like all of these lines of text about my life. And I was like, I guess I'm here about that. I don't know. And she was like, well, not really. And she like waves her hands and they disappear. And she was like, what other questions do you have for me, basically? And I was like, well, could you just tell me about myself? And she was like, sure. And she disappears. And in succession, I saw 3 different past lives of myself, as if I was watching from the outside. So I saw one past life of myself, like viewing me doing something, and I got to watch me, which didn't look like me. It looked like a past life version of me. And then another one of me doing something that I saw from the outside, which again looked like a past life version of me. And then a third one, and I was like, whoa, like, and they happened all really quick, but I got big understanding from each of them. And then at the end, we are back inside the castle, and I'm like looking out this window into the sun with her, and she's like standing next to me, like leaning on this like castle window. And I was like, cool, tell me about this life. Like, basically, like, give me another life. And she was like, she like smiled at me and she was like, everything you want to know, you already do. And boom. And then I woke up like very abruptly. And I was like, okay. So there's someone helping me. Like, there's someone that's holding all this information. The way that she works is she does not come when I call at all. To this day, she doesn't really show up if I call. Like, she will, but if she does, it's because she's going to use the Socratic method on me extensively. So she doesn't really show up when I call, but she does show up when I need her. And so she has popped in and out throughout my life in ways that I've needed her. And the way I said when she came back in kind of an astral to kind of confirm it, because I had felt her since then, but hadn't really seen her. So a couple years later I was doing an astral projection, and I had a plan. I had a route and a plan. Like, I was going to go to this certain place, and she pulled me onto a spaceship instead. And that's the only way I can describe it. I was on this crazy like spaceship thing. It was very peaceful, and I was looking back at Earth, and she was standing there beside me again. She looked slightly different, but it was definitely her. And I was like, oh my God, like, you're here. What's up? What are we doing? And basically she gave me the realization. I'm not going to go super into it, but like, you know, the concept of the Earth being a tiny blue dot, it was kind of that realization. And she just kind of confirmed herself as a mentor of mine, as like her being intimately invested in what the heck I am doing here, I guess. But she does not come when I call. She comes when she needs to come, and she summons me when she needs to summon me, which is on occasion. And I get information and we return in dream form, etc. So that is another way that guides can come through in dream space. There you go. Or in even astral spaces or in meditation, anything like that. However you're discovering them is valid. So the last guide I want to tell you about, and like I said, I do have more guides than this, but these are the ones I want to highlight, is someone that I never thought was going to be a guide. I actually summoned them. So for those of you who don't know, I've been working on a historical fantasy novel for the last 2 years, basically. The reason it's been about 2 years is because it is so heavily researched, and I want to make sure that I'm backing up everything I channel in with research. And this novel is called Lacosta. Lacosta is the story of an ancient woman poisoner. She lived in ancient Rome. She did actually walk on planet. Her name was Lacosta. She is responsible for the unaliving of multiple emperors, and she has an incredible story. She's just incredible. I love her so much. She also is very sassy, very opinionated, and has lots of thoughts on lots of things. Basically, when I started writing this book, or got the idea for this book, I felt her drop in as a character, and I was like, wow, okay, I guess I need to write this book. All books are channeled. You channel your characters. Everything exists in energetic reality. Let me know if you want a video about how books and fiction and stuff works magically, because I will tell you that everything exists in energetic reality. So I started channeling her in. And I started asking her questions, not only about her life, but about how she perceives what's going on now in this life. For me, like what would you think about this thing that's happening in the world right now? And just getting her opinion, because oftentimes her insights honestly are really helpful, and they're really interesting to have the perspective of someone who lived in the ancient past talking about stuff that's going on now in modern day. And I really like it. But after a while, I realized that we were kind of a lot more hitched together than I had originally thought. And I kind of asked her, I was like, hey, I don't really want you to go away once I'm done with this book. Can I still ask you questions or ask you advice, anything like that? And she kind of looked at me like a spirit guide, and like kind of gave me a side look. And I was like, yeah, actually, like, will you be my spirit guide, I guess? Like, will you be here? So basically, will you be my spirit friend more than anything? And she was all about it, very graciously, kind of. And she's super supportive, and I love her. And anyway, her book is basically, the first draft is almost done with all of the research and stuff components, and now it's just going in and getting fluffed. And then I'll let you know more about it if you want to read her story. It's truly incredible, and I feel super honored to get to bring it into reality. But yeah, that's Lacosta. Lacosta, my guide. She's awesome. She's a lot and awesome, and I really, really enjoy her. She's all of like 4'5" and like super sassy. She's not that short, but she's pretty short, and she has a lot of opinions on a lot of things, and she does not like men very much, which is really interesting to hear sometimes. Anyway, that is the gist of how I met some of my spirit guides. I hope it was at least inspiring to you or got you thinking about it in a different way, because the truth is there is no right or wrong way to get introduced to your spirit guides or to connect with your guides. They're your guides. They are going to come in your divine aligned timing. You can ask for it. You can ask for them to come in if you would like them to come in. I don't want anyone who watches this to be like, oh, that's never how it happens to me. I'm not that magical, whatever. This has been over the course of like 12 plus years of my life that this has been going on. I did not just wake up and we're like, I have all of this figured out. That's part of the reason I create content for you all, because I never want you to feel as alone as I felt during those times when I was trying to figure it out basically on my own. I don't want you to be in that space. I want you to feel like there's someone on the other side of this little rectangle you're watching me on that cares. Because I do, and your spiritual growth is important, but also it's yours, and that makes it beautiful. So please do not sit there and feel sad that it hasn't worked out exactly the way it worked out for me, for you. We all have our different paths, and I promise the way it works out for you is beautiful as well. Don't forget, you can ask your guides for help. You can ask them to identify themselves. You can tell them that you need steps, the next steps that will bring you closer to connecting with them, and they can open up those doors for you, because you're not alone. None of us are, and it's safe and possible to ask your guides for help. That's my PSA. Anyway, got a bunch of fun stuff. If you want to work with me, I will link a ton of different stuff down below that you can work with me on. I have the Patreon, which I did touch on before, but you can get readings with me. During readings, I do help you identify and introduce your spirit guides. So if you want to connect more deeply one-on-one, I can do that in reading form for you. I also offer group readings. And again, if you would like to travel with me and channel and do some historical channeling, kind of like how I did with the Lacosta, go check out my link trees on any of my social medias. Like Rev Words is my handle. I'd love to travel with you. We have so much fun. And I'm just so excited. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching this. I hope this inspired you. Please let me know if you've met any of your guides, how you met them, or if you are taking that step to like intentionally ask your guides for them to introduce themselves. I'd love to know that too. So you feel free to comment those down below. Like, subscribe, hit the little ding dong bell so you get notified. And remember, you are magical as fuck. Have an amazing day.